Welcome to LollieTasking. I invite you to join me and other amazing and inspiring women discussing our passion, work, discovering our purpose, interesting topics, and how we seem to have it all together. I hope we can motivate you and show you you can do it too, with some planning, a little bit of balance, and a dash of determination. This is LollieTasking. Welcome to another inspiring episode of LollieTasking. I am your host, Dr. Lola, and on today's show we have with us Nikki Klugh who is a principal designer and owner of Nikki Klugh Design Group. She is an award-winning interior designer and a 3-time best-selling author. If you recognize her, it may have just been because you've seen her in a national commercial, y'all, as she is the spokeswoman of the Home Depot. In addition, she has given several of her interior design expertise on various media outlets such as BET Her, NBC, San Diego Lifestyle, just to name a few. In addition, she's also contributed to multiple print magazines. If I was to tell you all her accolades, I'll be here forever. So let's just stop right there. She is also married to a physician and Naval officer and has 4 grown boys. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome to our show today, Miss Nikki Klugh.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Lola.
Oh, it is so great to have you. And before we get started on our question, we'll go ahead and do our balance in 5 minutes. For those of us that are new to LollieTasking, as you all know, or those that don't know, we have a segment of the show called Balance Our Mind in 5 minutes. This is where I talk about something that is going on or something I think can just help us have a better sense of peace in our heart or our soul. So today's topic is about riding through the storm. I think this topic is very perfect in the season that we're in right now. When going through a storm, it is very, very important to surround yourself with positive people, in addition to always have positive information always feeding yourself. Before I get going, I want to give a shout out to one of my friends, Dr. G of Fearless Freedom Podcast. Please go subscribe to her podcast. She invited me to a challenge called Rise Up Challenge. And on this challenge, we had multiple various speakers who have just blessed my soul and lifted me throughout this difficult time. One of such amazing speakers that just spoke to me was Lecrae, the gospel hip hop artist. On there, he actually came and spoke about riding through the storm. It talks about there are 3 storms in life. One storm is based on our action, like what we did has caused that storm in our life. Another one is based on what other people have done to us that caused the storm. You could think about this as people who have gone through abuse. Another storm is just the storm of a broken world. We're currently in a broken world. Okay, it has nothing to do with you or what anybody else does. It is just what it is at this point. So through that storm, you have 3 choices you have to make. And he said to think of ourselves as boats. Okay, you could either be a sailboat, a speedboat, or a raft. As a sailboat, let's start with speedboat first, actually. Unfortunately, speedboat is my default personality. I'm a go person. Let's just go. Let's get it done. Let's not waste time. If you're a speedboat and you don't take time to pause, reflect, look at the situation, you're going to run out of steam really, really fast. Okay? And then he said, if you're a raft just goes through the motion. It goes through the wind. Wherever the wind takes them, the raft goes, right? If you're a raft, you don't even think about things you can do to help the situation. You let the situation control your life. He said, don't be any of those 2 things. What you need to be is a sailboat. Let God, let Jesus be the one carrying you through the storm. And every now and then, depending on how the storm goes, you change your directions with the sails of the boat. Okay, so I hope this ministers to anybody listening. I know times are hard. People are losing their job. Just know that this too shall pass. While I don't want you to be a speedboat, I also don't want you to be a raft and just sit down there, pray about it, but make changes that matter to you at this point in time. Okay, and that's all I have for today. Is there anything you have to add, Nikki?
I mean, that's all great. I think that I've been able to get through this by serving others, and so sharing gifts is
Amen.
a way to, you know, to have some, you know, get out of the dumps. I've been
Right.
saying that instead of retail therapy, I know a lot of people have been on
Mhm.
Amazon that are, maybe still working from home and just feel bored and discontent with not being able to go anywhere or do anything. But I've been working on, just supporting people actually and working from their home offices. And so instead of retail therapy, I've been saying that I'm doing service therapy. So,
Amen. Amen. And
yeah.
it's funny that you would say that's very important because I love to serve people too. And you don't, even though yes, you're serving people, you're helping people, there's a part of it that also gives you some kind of inner peace,
Mhm.
just knowing that you're doing that as well. Which
Yeah.
brings me to you're a mom, your
Yes.
wife,
Yes.
your interior designer extraordinaire. How are you able? Okay, first of all, how did you even decide to go into interior design? Can you just walk us through your journey and how
Yeah,
Nikki
sure.
Klugh Design came into
Yeah.
being?
Yeah. So I say I've been designing professionally for 19 years, but really all my
Okay.
life because I started off rearranging my tiny little bedroom, little 10-foot by 10-foot space, so that I could get my Barbie dollhouse in that room. I could
Oh,
get my furniture and still have my dollhouse and all of the accessories and parts and pieces and clothing. And so I have always been evaluating space and processing colors and textures. And I've just done it all my life. And my mom and I were weekend warriors before that was even a term. We would sew curtains together and paint and do wallpaper and change out light fixtures. Like her passion, her college major was fashion design. But when she graduated, she had me and just needed to get the best job. Remember that time frame where it's like get a good paying job with benefits.
mm-hmm,
That was
mm-hmm.
her focus. And so being in Houston, Texas, she went into the oil industry and was a manager at an oil company. So our weekends was her creative time and became my creative time. And I've just always loved design, but it wasn't until I was majoring in engineering. So I went to engineering high school. I've always been really, really good at math and science. And so I was just steered that way from, different counselors and family members. It's like, okay, I'm good at it. So sure. I
Mm-hmm.
was just not, it just didn't make me alive. It didn't make me come alive. And so when I got married, I actually stopped. I was just hours away from finishing. And I was like, I want to just stay and be with my babies. I just want to stay home.
Right,
And
right.
so I did, but then we had 4 children, and I was like, "I'm home. I don't want to be cooped up in this house with all these babies all the time." And so, but it was around the reemergence, or not reemergence, it was around the beginning of HGTV that I was able to re-engage with my true love and my passion for design. And I went back to school. I got my degree in interior design, and been going ever since.
That's awesome. So, your how old are your kids now?
My youngest is 19 and my oldest is 24.
Oh my gosh. So all this while you were home with four boys, y'all, not
Yeah.
just four, four boys. How were you
I
able
had to get out the
to,
house.
right? How were you able to have time and space during that time to still feed your creativity before you went back to school?
Right. That's a great question because what I realized early on when we were in our first home, which happened to be the home that my grandfather built his family. So we
Ah,
renovated that home. So that was one of the first things that got my bug going again. We renovated that home. I made it a home for us. My husband was in medical school. I decorated for other friends, and so it wasn't professional. I wasn't
right.
for it. It was a hobby, and I realized what a difference it made for me to have my own space. And anytime we would move, as he's going from residency to fellowship and all of that, one of the first spaces I would get taken care of would be the boys' room so they could feel
Mhm.
settled. And
Right.
then I would do our bedroom and then I do the rest of the house. You think you might do the common areas first, but it was like,
Mhm.
no, we need to each have our space where we feel secure. And this is our sanctuary. And we can know that things are going to be okay. Like this is a new situation, new friends, new city, but home is always going to be special. And so I realized how important that was. We moved quite a bit. And so then when I had my youngest son, it was like, okay, I really should just go back to school and make this official.
Right, right. And I'm sure like other people were coming and looking at your place. They're like, whoa, like, how are
Yeah.
you not doing this for real? I
Right,
think
right.
I think one of the things you said I think is very important for other women who are contemplating going back to work is that you took what you had and
Mhm.
you kind of expressed your creativity in the situation that you were, right? You
Yeah,
talked about going from room to, you didn't do everything in one day. I'm sure you concentrated on the boys' room at one time and concentrated on your room at the other time, and then maybe the living room last, or maybe the kitchen last, you know?
right. Right. Yeah. Just starting where you are. I say that even as I coach young interior designers, is that, I used to look at the big designers and the men and women that would be in the magazine. It's like, oh, when will I get there? Oh,
Right.
I'm not as good as them, yet. Or how can I record video? I don't have as many projects to highlight. And you don't get good until you start, you just have to start. And the fact that I was on, the BET commercial for Black Girls Rock, and I was so calm and composed in that very tense and high pressure situation
Mhm.
is because I've been practicing for 2 years, like doing Facebook
Right.
Lives. And
Ah.
Facebook Lives with two viewers doesn't feel great in the moment. It's like, well, I
Mhm.
hope some people are catching it on the replay. I don't know. I feel like I'm talking to myself right now. But but then when it was like lights, camera, action, I could engage and I could, memorize my line and be a part of the crew. It's like 20, 25 people watching you. I would not have been prepared for that moment had I not been doing Facebook Lives for 2 years. So it's just starting where you are. You just have to start.
I think what thing you said that was so amazing. I'm like, she's just talking to me right now. It's like, we can't help it, right? Especially like highly ambitious and highly motivated women. I put you in that bracket, right? Because we're taught to look at other, like, you should look at other people to inspire you, right? So there's a part of it that's like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough. But what I tell people is, and that's what I love about this Journey to Our Purpose series, is like nobody really just ends, like, you may see them today, but I didn't know your journey the past 19 years, you know?
Right. Right. Another thing, Lola, that I am like in this moment realizing it is that when we're younger and that ambition starts coming out us in our formative years, and we're getting encouragement from our parents and from our teachers,
Hmm.
and we're compared, right? It's just something
Right.
with humans. We're compared to other people in our grade. We're compared to our siblings. We're compared. I remember I was compared to my cousins, and it's like you're compared. But in those years, it's a smaller bracket of people that you're compared to. I mean, you shouldn't compare at all, right?
Right.
But the ambitious ones, we're compared to our classmates. We're
Right.
compared to people our age and people in our exact same spot. And then when we
Hmm.
get out in college, maybe we start comparing ourselves on our own to our classmates, and then the seniors or the fellows, or
Hmm.
and then when we get out of the real world, we're comparing ourselves to everyone.
Everyone.
And so it's not this lateral comparison anymore.
Right.
And again, we should not compare. We just shouldn't. But sometimes human nature just takes over. And it's an unfair comparison. It is just so unfair to do that to ourselves, to say, why can't I perform like that? Well, they have 10 years ahead of you. They have a different life
Right.
circumstance. I used to look at designers that, in the majority population, and it's like, well, how does she get that client? And it's like, well, her whole family knows wealthy people. Like
Exactly.
they have generations and generations of wealth that I
Mhm.
don't have access to yet.
Right.
So it's just, I always say comparison, it's a scripture. Comparison is the thief of joy. And I remind myself that constantly, because we will get caught up in that trap. And whether we're better than someone, our head gets full of ourselves. I say better in air quotes.
Right.
That steals our joy,
Yeah.
as well as thinking we're not as good as someone else. That steals our joy as well.
Amen to that. And the thing that also stood out to me when you said that is like, it's I think it's okay to admire people. Like in the
Mhm,
beginning of our conversation, I said, I admire you. Because
mhm.
when you admire people, you learn from them
Exactly.
and you learn what they did right. So you don't make the mistakes they did, right? That
Right.
way you can grow. You can be a well-rounded person. I said it's always important to have mentors.
Yes.
Were you able to, I mean, I don't know that many. I'm sure there are a lot of minority designers out there. I just don't know that many personally. Were you able to get mentors that maybe were in your same space that can kind of tell you don't go this way? Or did you think it was important for you to get the majority mentor to kind of like be able to see what they did wrong or what they're doing right or what I need to do to kind of get you out of that comparison mode?
That's a really great question. In the beginning, before the emergence of Facebook and Facebook groups, it
Hmm.
was impossible for me to get a mentor. I asked and I asked and I volunteered. I joined boards, and there were no designers, black or white or otherwise, that would stop and take time to mentor me.
Really?
I promise you. I don't know if that was my
Wow.
experience alone, if I was just in a city or at a time that it wasn't happening for people and they weren't willing to take you under their wings. But I kept hitting a brick wall when I looked for a mentor because I knew I needed someone. I
Mhm.
worked for another designer for only 2 years before I went out on my own. And it was because she was ready to ramp down and I was ready to ramp up. And so
Right.
I worked for her 2 years. I learned a lot. My first project was a $14 million design project. So I was
Wow.
well from the very beginning. And then the crash happened 3 years
Mm.
later, between working with her and moving to San Diego at the same time as the housing crash in 2008. I had clients and it was wonderful. Like they were nurses and OT, therapists,
Mhm. Mhm.
and a great crowd, to be in Silicon Valley at that.
Right.
So that was a great start to my career. But then I came here and it was just crickets.
Mm.
But then at the emergence of Facebook and Facebook groups, things started loosening up, and we realized we are stronger together. Like, what are you
Amen.
doing to get business? And I think maybe because we're in other cities and we don't feel like a direct competition is why it started opening up, because we're able to connect online. But that's when I started finding mentors, and I found a couple of Black designers, and then I've had also some coaches that I've paid. So uh,
Okay.
that was definitely the growth spurt. And being in a community of entrepreneurs, other entrepreneurs in other industries too, really helped me understand and start to understand business and marketing and sales. Like I didn't ever have to market or sell before because I essentially had the
Mm.
job when I walked in the door. So,
Right.
quite a long journey, quite a long answer to your mentorship question.
No, no, I think
Valuable, and that's
right.
what I do it now. There was a time, I haven't done it in a while. I do it inside of a smaller group now, but I had my calendar open to any young designer to reach out to me on Fridays, and so I have
Oh,
a
that's
time block to
awesome.
let anyone schedule some time, because I totally believe that mentorship made the biggest difference for me.
Yeah, like it's one thing you mentioned besides mentorship is also coaching. It's so
Mhm,
funny because I come from the medical world and our world is so different. And
mhm,
and the more I have done podcasting and I'm like talking to other people that are not in the medical field, I'm realizing that we don't know that much. Like so just like in the medical world, we always have what we call attendance during training,
mhm, mhm,
right?
mhm.
Attendance kind of they don't tell you how to treat your patient, right? They supervise you and kind of guide you. Like, I wouldn't do it this way. This is how I would do it until you're able to get on your own. I think I kind of see mentorship in that way,
Mhm.
especially no matter what industry you're trying to get into, especially if you're a woman, you're busy. It's I personally gravitate towards other women that have been in my shoes, so they understand maybe why I may not be able to show up at a particular time
Mhm.
and able to do certain things. But at the same time, it's okay to also get mentors that are not like you if you're looking for
Mhm.
something specific. And you mentioned coaching. So what kind of coaches did you get? Is it more like a life coach, business coach, and what kind of things do they offer to kind of help you with your growth?
The first coach that I signed up for had a business blueprint in a box. And she essentially was sharing, how she structured her business. Because again, I didn't know the four pillars of business. I had, clients, they referred me, I serviced them. I didn't have a step-by-step method that I would repeat over and over. I just was a freelancer essentially. I wasn't running a business. I had a business license and a resource
Right,
license, but that's
right.
so. And so following her system allowed me to see, oh, okay, well, there are some things that I should be doing the same way every time. Okay, I can do that. Um, and then it just grew from there. To be honest, I've likely paid 5, 6 different coaches into the tens and thousands of dollars that I've spent on my education with
Mhm.
them. I've had coaches like Lisa Nichols, Tony Robbins,
Interesting.
um,
Wow.
some interior design coaches. So it wasn't just design, it was also business coaching that I needed.
Right,
And that
right,
crosses any profession.
right.
I didn't know what a lead magnet was. There were various things that were just so basic that
Mhm.
I had to learn literally from A. And I think if I were to say where I am on the spectrum of A to Z, so far as my business knowledge, I would say I'm in the P's and the Q's now.
That's
I
awesome.
still have more to go, and I'm sure things will change, and I'll keep going, right?
Right, right, right. I think it's very important to invest in yourself. That's what I got out of that. Like, you invested in yourself. You
Mhm.
knew you had the gift, right? But you didn't
Right,
just rely on your gift. You went back to school, you learned the training, you got mentorship, and then you got coaches. You invested in yourself in all ways. And then when it comes to actually getting clients, you started with where you were,
right,
right? You talked
right.
about your first clients were you. You were your client, right? You you
Right.
you designed your own places, then it went to friends and it
Mhm,
went to nurses and
mhm,
then it kind of went from there. So what if there's a lady right now, she's home with her three kids, just
mhm.
feels defeated, like my life is just not around
Oh,
marriage and kids.
mhm,
Like,
mhm.
how can you encourage them that they can do it? You can do it too. Like, what are some, if there was one thing you were to tell, I don't know if you were in that same situation at that point too, but like, if you were to tell a young lady, maybe with three young kids, that just feels like, there's more. I have a gift. I want to give it to the world. Like, what would you tell them?
I would say to find what it is that brings them joy, whether they got paid for it or not. And that was my approach when I went back to school. Again, like you, felt like a little bit like, is this, you know, is this what my life is? Kids and husband, cleaning the house, cleaning the same, few rooms over and over and cooking dinner by 6
Right.
and doesn't get home till 8. So I was in a rut. I was in a rut, and I just wanted to do something for me. So it really was a
Right.
selfish desire. But then as I started serving others, I realized, okay, this is my gift. It's not supposed to just be for me. Uh,
Right.
it's supposed to serve other people. So although at the beginning it felt selfish, it was like my sanity, my lifeline, outside of baby talk and housework. Um, it it was my God-given gift. It is my God-given gift,
It
and it's
is your
to serve
gift.
others. Yeah.
I'm so glad you cut yourself because I was like, not was, is.
Right, 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 right.
you know, it's, as women, like, and I tell people, like, when I ask you, like, who are your favorite people, right? They never mention themselves.
Who are
If
who are my favorite people?
Yeah, if I were to ask you, like, who are your top five favorite people, who
Who are
would you
my
say
top 5 favorite people in the world?
in the world?
In the world. Okay. Outside of our family, because of course my husband is my favorite person.
No, you could even include
Oh,
your husband. You could
right.
include your husband. Who are your top five favorite people right now? Include your husband, include your kids. Like, who would you?
Well, that's it. I don't
That's
have any
it,
more.
right? Okay. You know what? Okay, let's make it top six then. Do you know who your number one favorite person should be? It should be you.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
I see where you're
So
going.
we
Well, yeah,
women,
that should be automatic though, right?
right.
It's
It should
like
be
you love the
automatic. So, like,
people.
even in the Bible, God said, love your neighbors as you love
You love
yourself.
yourself. Yes.
Always
Amen.
forget about ourselves.
You
So,
can't love other people.
exactly. If you don't love yourself, you can't love other people. So I
Yeah.
think it's important as women, we should find that one thing that gives us passion, that kind of elevates us. And that's what LollieTasking is about. Trying
Yeah.
to encourage other women, like, yes, and there's some women, they're totally content, right?
Mhm,
Being
mhm.
home, doing homemaking, that
Absolutely.
gives them joy. And that's perfect. And if
Absolutely.
that's you, go on and teach me how to do it.
Right. Right.
and
Right.
And if that's not you, that's okay too.
Mhm,
It's okay.
mhm.
And I don't even see that as being selfish. It's okay to love yourself and give yourself something
Absolutely.
else to get to. All right. So we talked about how you came about, and how were your boys during this time? Did they ever feel like, oh, daddy's not home, mommy's not home?
You
What were
know,
the growing pains during that time?
there definitely were some growing pains. There definitely was learning how to manage it all. And, I gave up the idea of work life balance. I call it work life rhythm. There are some times when my kids need me more and I have slowed down my business. There have been times when my business has picked up and my husband and I tag team on, working and supporting the boys. Um, there definitely have been some ebbs and flows in the whole thing. But before I got into that rhythm, there was definitely tensions. There was definitely like just trying to do it all, trying to be the same
Mhm.
mom that I was before my business
Right.
and run a business. And then when I started having employees and bigger projects and more demanding clients. And then I added travel to that. So I serve
Mhm.
clients from coast to coast now. There was definitely some trying times, definitely some trying times. But I will say that there was one day when I had had enough and I was ready to quit. And one of my sons, actually the one who was the catalyst for me pushing so hard, uh, and not in a good way, in a bad way.
Mm.
And he said, I was fussing about some budgetary item, and he said, "But you don't pay the bills." Right. I was fussing about money in some kind of way and paying bills and blah blah blah. And he was
Oh
like,
my
"But
God.
daddy pays the bills. You don't pay the bills." And I was like, "Oh, really now?" And so then I
Oh
really went
no, he did
overdrive
not.
to make my business profitable. And
Mm,
so in that process is when the strain happens. See, it's all about heart. Everything,
mhm.
everything. It's all about the motive behind it. And in that
Right.
moment, my motive was pride. My motive was making money so my boys couldn't say that I don't contribute financially to our family, versus having a conversation another day when we're all together as a family and their dad correcting them, which he often does, but
Right.
getting in the power of this is how we structured our family. I retreated to proving, right? And so, but this very same kid years later, after I'd had enough of trying to prove my worth to this family, said, "No, mom, you can't quit. Look at what you've done. Plus,
Oh.
I don't want to be a dream killer." And I'm like, oh my
There's
God.
always that one child.
The
There's always
very
that one
same one.
child.
I won't name any names.
That's okay. We're not even going pro.
Oh my gosh. So it has been a very interesting journey. I've loved every minute of it. I mean, yes, I've hated some moments too, but I
Right.
look at all of it and it was so worth it.
Definitely. Like nothing, I always say there's nothing good that's easy and there's nothing easy that's good. Like if you get it too easy, it's not, it usually, not all the
Right,
time, it
right,
usually doesn't always pan out. And,
right.
if you want something good, and even if I look at your work, like I could tell how much thought went into it. I could tell how much work went into it. You know, I think I sent you a message one time. I was like, I can't wait. I'm a gazillionaire. I am totally hiring to redesign my house. Because I'm all about simplicity and class, and you just display that
Thank you.
so well.
Thank you.
Um, so before we get into your business, so how are you able to balance with your husband? Because I know he's in the military as well, right?
Yes, he is. He's been deployed a few times and it's been challenging, but we have made a commitment from the very, very, very beginning. We would never divorce. That was our commitment to one another, that we, till death do us part, we'd have to hate each other, to kill each other before we actually divorce. And so we've had some trials, some tribulations, and we have just always sought wise counsel whenever we felt like we couldn't figure this out. Like, who can help us? Someone else has had to have gone through this situation.
Right.
And so I'm so glad. Again, Facebook, it can be a tool, or it could,
Mhm.
to use for good or destruction. But I love now the authenticity and the transparency, and you
Yeah.
can find groups of people that are willing to be authentic with you and tell you, no, that's not unusual. In fact, you should probably expect that to happen. And here's what you do to try to avoid it. And here's what you do if you don't avoid it. And so I'm
Mhm.
so thankful for that in Facebook. But yeah, we've had some problems. We've had some challenges. One thing that we did though is we honored date night. So at some
Mhm.
point we realized that either he's pre-call, he's post-call, or he's on
He's
call.
on call.
No other time of the month. He's something to do with call. And so it doesn't matter what's going on. We have a date night every single month, and I had to figure out how to pay for it. But we were able to pay for the sitter by me doing a babysitting swap with another mom who, can
Nice.
afford a babysitter. And sometimes our date consisted of going to dance. And see, the other great thing about this mom, let me go back a minute. The other great thing about this mom is she's a night owl like me. And so we would each go to each other's house once a month at bedtime. And so the
Mhm.
children would see them, would know, okay, this person is here with me to keep me safe.
Right.
But they would go to bed. And then we could just be there reading a book or watching TV and not really have to babysit. We were just there to make sure the house didn't burn down, right? And
Right.
and so, um, and so we would go on these date nights late at night, regardless if he was post call or not, regardless if he was on call or not. And we go to a club during their free happy hour or whatever, what have you. And we'd sit there talking until the club got hyped, because we both love dancing. That's actually
Right, right. I could
how we
tell
met.
that.
So, so that was a free date. I mean, maybe we had to buy a
Mhm.
drink to be in the club. We'd eat at home, send our kids to bed, go out and sit and wait
Just have fun.
for free entry into the club. So, I mean, we made a way. We made a way to have our date nights, and it was once a month. And no, like, non-negotiable. It had to happen, and so that's how we have stayed connected all these years. And then we were able to start taking trips together and leave the kids at home. And now it's like we're on our second honeymoon again. So
Oh, because all the kids have
they've had
grown.
times, yes.
Wow, that's awesome. So you invested in yourself. You took yourself. You're important, right? You invested in yourself, what mattered to you. You
Mhm,
invested in your children. You
mhm,
sort people around you, like the
yes,
other mom you talked about right
mhm,
there. When you started your business, you started with people close to you.
Right.
And then, like, you had your balance with your husband, you had your date, and I think that's very important. A lot of people just don't date anymore. Like, it's like you get married and you don't date anymore. And I don't think that's fair to either the husband, the wife, or both, or even the kids, because the
Yeah.
kids will learn from you, right? So it's
Mhm.
important that they see that and see that how many over so many years later, my parents still love each other. That's very nice. Another thing I was gonna mention, I could I could almost promise you that your son that motivated you to like keep going and then was like, "What are you doing? Don't stop." I could almost guarantee you, like, whoever he's gonna date is gonna be an ambitious woman just
Yeah.
like you.
I see it. Yes, yes.
Oh my God. So with all that said, so after all this years, 19 years of, more than 19 years actually of, working on Nikki Klugh Design Group and getting to where you are, it's so amazing just seeing some of the things you've done. So, I mean, people can go online. I'll put all your information in the show notes for them to go see it. Can you talk a little bit about, you talk about sacred spaces and like what motivates you? Like what do you look for in your designs when you do them?
So definitely sacred spaces is important to me, and it doesn't mean prayer room only, although we do
Right.
prayer rooms. For me, sacred spaces means it's a space that's set aside for a specific purpose. It's honored in that purpose and it's created for that purpose. And so when we talk about bedrooms, I call it love shacks.
Mhm.
I teach people how to appeal to both the in both partners, right? Male and female in that space, and how to use different shapes and textures and pattern that appeal to the male side and the female side. And we talk about designing to your senses, bringing in an experience that's not only visual, but also tactile and olfactory. And so all these different layers to create an environment that's amazing. And so when you see the pictures of my work, it only tells a really small piece of that story.
Mm,
It has not only solved a functionality issue for the family,
right.
but it also has created this whole environment that's uniquely designed to them and their senses and their goals, even. And so, another example is I say money spaces. So, home offices is something that's one of my service areas in this moment as we are all sheltering in place and working
Right.
a lot.
Most of us, yeah.
And so creating a space in your home that you can instantly be activated when you walk into the door. There's this separation that happens when we're driving to work that if you're working from home, you don't get anymore. And
Mhm.
oftentimes we have traffic, or you can get your mind kind of clicked in and dialed in to, okay, this is what I'm going to work to do. But when you're at home, that doesn't happen as easily. You don't have that
Right.
time distance separation. So I did this night 6 years ago for a women's conference. I helped entrepreneurs see that there are design elements. There's actually evidence-based design that we can use and to our benefit. And so we can employ these different techniques so that we're more productive and more profitable, even
Mm,
more focused, have more clarity, have more creativity, whatever it is that you're desiring more of in your space. I help people get to the design elements that's going to support that. And one of them even like calls them into their beautiful future. And I love that piece of
ah,
the exercise because we dig into their big whys, which is way more than just a goal. It's a non-negotiable goal, one that
mm,
started some vow or promise you made to yourself in your formative years. And I help them make it a visceral experience and connect it to an image that is directly in their line of sight throughout the day. So you never forget why you're doing what you're doing.
right.
You pass the discomfort and some of the ways that we make ourselves small. It pulls you out of that. And I have so enjoyed doing that over these past few weeks, helping people with that, because it was like we needed to be reinvigorated. I think we were just
Right.
kind of in a sleep, kind of just like
Mm-hmm.
Walking Dead, and shuffling and bustling from place to place to place, and forgetting why we're in our
While
purpose.
we're doing it.
It's been an amazing time to help people reconnect with that.
So, if you were to, you talk about having a sacred slash relaxation space and a money space.
Mhm.
For, let's say, some of us, we're not at the Nikki Klugh financial ability to be able to hire you, right? So,
Yeah.
what is one thing you can, we will all get there eventually, but what is one, what is one thing you can advise to help you create a relaxation space or a money space that would
Right,
work
right.
for people?
Right. So you would be surprised. I will actually send you I will send you our price list, ma'am. No, I mean, no, we're not cheap by any means, but what I think people get intimidated by is the luxury that I create. It makes it
Huh?
unattainable. But again, what I have been teaching the members of our challenge, because we did it in the form of a challenge so that I could teach one piece one day at a time and break it down for people, is that it really is about you. It's not about anybody else. Like, how can we make this space amazing for you and then within your budget? So another thing that I've been teaching besides the big why, which it's one of my favorite pieces, is the power of color.
Hmm.
And so you as a doctor have probably noticed that there's never any kind of red decor in the hospital, right?
Yes,
There's
that's
a reason
true.
for that. There's a reason for that.
Except in the heart center, because I'm a cardiologist, a little
Right,
bit in the
right.
heart
Maybe a
center,
little
but
bit of
but
red.
it's nice and beautiful. It is love.
Right, right. It might be an art,
Right.
installation with a heart, but you will never find
But
the
not a
wall.
red room. No, not a red room.
Right. And so I think a lot of us know and have experienced that colors can affect our mood and put us in a happy, cheery space, or, kind of a mellow or zen. And even some spaces we've been in that it's like depressing because of the colors in that space. Well, that's our mood, but it can also have an effect on our bodies, like a scientifically proven physiologic response to color. Did you know that?
Interesting. No, I
Yeah,
did not.
yeah. And so that's why hospitals won't use red, because red has been proven to elevate your blood pressure. And so, yeah, that's why you'll have, more blues and greens because the wavelength is
The
longer.
cool colors.
Color is energy. So everything's energy, really, right?
Right.
But
Right.
color is also energy. It's expressed through the wavelengths, is how we receive it. And the longer wavelengths are blues and greens. And so they're more calming. Whereas the energetic ones that are bouncing and, a shorter wavelength, those are the reds and oranges and yellows. And so I help people first identify what is it that you need more of. Do you need more clarity? Do you need more focus? Do you need more creativity? And then we identify which colors are going to support that for them and how then to
Interesting.
apply the color in their space so that it's the most effective. So choosing colors in your workspace or your home, colors have not only scientific properties, they also have connotations from society. So consider those two things as you are decorating any space in your home.
Wow, that's interesting, because I'm not gonna lie, when when I'm decorating or attempt, I should say, to decorate, because I do not have any decorating bug in my body at all. I attempt, but it never comes out the way I want it to. I just put things together. I'm like, oh, that looks good, that looks good, that looks good, and I never really like sit down and think about the why of the space. Like that's interesting. Okay, I like that. Um, so besides, you talked about your price list not being too expensive, and I think I joke a lot that she's expensive, and I say that because if you see what she's doing, it is intimidating because it is really good,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So, her quality is super expensive, but it doesn't mean you cannot afford her. Let's put it that way. Like her quality, she's not cheap. Like her quality is not cheap. It's very,
No.
very luxurious and it's very, very great. So we're gonna talk about her her websites and how to get in contact with her. I want you guys to definitely follow her on Instagram, follow her on Facebook, go
Yes.
on her website, contact her, tell her what you need. She will tell you if you know what she wants, so she can consult with you.
I can.
And I would definitely love for all my friends to just check her out. And if you're in for do you do offices too?
Yes, that's what we're
Okay,
focusing on right now.
perfect.
Like
So
home office as well as commercial. Yes,
at
we've done
first
commercial
commercial.
work.
So like if you're even with people talking about businesses, like starting your businesses where we're out of this COVID season, when it's time to recreate your office or even have, get an office that can speak to your clients or your patients or whatever you are, you can definitely contact her. So
Mhm.
we've had a very good conversation today. And we've talked about how you've balanced with your husband and your kids. I want to talk about you. How do
Okay.
you balance yourself
Oh,
to
that's a good
keep
one.
grounded and balanced and just zen?
That's a great question. I didn't always do a good job of that, when I was ambitious, I still am, but ambitious with no breaks. I would work and work and work and work and work. And I love what I do, so it's hard to stop.
Mhm.
Um, and then I realized, I've got to do better. I would go, 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 go for months and months and months at a time. And then I'd crash and I'd have to clear my whole calendar. No matter what was going on, I would cancel appointments, reschedule appointments. It's like, that's not a good look either.
Right.
So then I started just taking more breaks. And I was so glad I did. There was a season in our life where I actually needed to put my business on pause completely. But leading up to that, I decided that I would only work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And it was a long day, kind of like a nurse's shift where it's 12
Wow.
hours full on. We had leftovers for dinner. And I was in it. And my team, those are the days my team would come in, and then we'd have 4 days off.
Mm.
And so I really loved that because Mondays was like Team Klugh all day, was everything the family needed to get done, appointments, bills, errands, everything would get done on Mondays. And then Fridays were my day. It was self-care day. I called it my me day on Fridays. I would play
Wow.
tennis in the morning, then I get my locks retwisted, and my manicure and pedicure was in rotation with my massage. So I
Okay.
loved my Fridays. I still love now. So, and then Saturday and Sunday was just all family, just whatever anybody else wanted to do. I was open. I didn't have to get anything done on those
Wow.
days. Of course, we had church and kind of a routine between the beach or the movie, depending on the season. Sunday fun day, but that was a really good period. And so I've since gone back to working Mondays through Fridays, keeping Friday afternoon for my me time, and it feels good to have
Mhm.
that you know afternoon. No, who wants to work on a Friday afternoon?
Right, exactly, exactly.
So that's
And
when my appointments are in rotation.
right. And when you went 3 days a week, was that when the boys were younger or
No, they were teenagers. They were
okay,
teenagers.
well, they were still
So
younger then. So it was
we're
you
also home.
they still needed you. They still needed their mama during that time. So
Absolutely, they did. It was a late night. I would probably end work about 7. Yeah,
okay.
and then, like I said, we'd have leftovers, or one of the older boys would cook dinner if they wanted something different. But yeah, it was very doable though.
Right.
I was doing it anyway, but just every day.
Exactly.
And it's fun,
Exactly.
yeah. So
The ability to be able to take a pause and say, okay, this is what I need is so important. And I think that's why entrepreneurship is also good for any woman listening to this and is contemplating it and don't really realize how to do it. You don't necessarily have to go full force. You could do what Nikki did at that point in time, maybe work 2 days a week and focus on those 2 days a week, or maybe work half days for 5 days and say my working hours is from 9 to 12 or whatever during
Right.
that time. You got to do what works for you. And I think people need to put themselves into the equation.
Mhm.
I'm definitely, I listen, I need to have a Friday me day too. Like
Mhm.
I'm listening to you, I'm like, you know what, that's not a bad idea.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like we need to take care of ourselves, we need to take care of our family, we need to take care of everybody. But like I always said, this is not the first I've mentioned this in the podcast, but if you don't take care of yourself, you really don't have enough to take care of other people.
Yes.
So this is really good. Thank you so much for joining us, Nikki. Was there
Thank
anything else you
you.
wanted to add?
No, this has been amazing. I think we covered every topic pretty thoroughly. So thank you for I just have loved that, that you are doing this. It's so important to let people know that they are not alone, that there are others of us out there that face the same challenges. So thank you. Thank you for being so open and transparent.
Oh no, thank you for coming. I'm sure there's somebody listening to this and like, oh my gosh, if Nikki can do it, I can do it. But like I always tell everybody, she's been in it for a long time. It doesn't mean it will take you all that years to do it. Everybody's journey is different. So you
Absolutely.
just gotta start.
Yes.
Start.
Yes.
Start. It's starting and planning and doing what needs to do. Okay, with that being said, everybody, thank you so much for joining us for another inspiring episode of LollieTasking. We will have all the information down in our show notes. Nikki has sent me all her information. I'll go ahead and put that in there for everybody to follow her and get in contact with her. Even if you just have a question or you want to seek her expertise in interior designing, I'm sure she'll be very open to talking to you. So till next time, just always remember you can do it too with some planning, a little bit of balance, and a dash of determination. Have a nice week ahead, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us for another inspiring episode of LollieTasking. If you have any questions or topics you would like for us to discuss, please contact me via lollytasking.com, or better yet, you could just send me a direct message on Instagram at LollieTasker. If you've liked what you've heard today, what are you waiting on? Just go ahead and click that subscribe button, rate and leave a great review on iTunes. And of course, do share with your friends. Till next time, this is LollieTasking.